How's it going, guys? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to another edition of the Phil Talk Sports podcast. Baseball season is upon us, so I brought in the biggest baseball fan I know. People that have been listening to the show for a long time might remember Kramer on some of the early episodes. I don't think I even was doing video back then, so if you don't know, this is what Kramer looks like. How's it going, man?
Pretty good.
It's probably been a good – I think the last time you were on was when we were living together still during COVID.
Yeah, that was at least 4 years ago.
4 years ago, you were talking about you had just went to LA, you saw a Rams game at the Coliseum.
Yep.
And we were talking about how the Super Bowl wasn't going to have a full crowd. That's how long ago everything had happened, I think. But now baseball's upon us. Mm-hmm. Kramer's a huge Yankee fan. Don't let the Jaguar shirt fool you. He is a Yankee fan as well. And we're just mostly going to talk baseball. We might sneak a couple other things in here towards the end. Kramer, you're only the second person to do this episode in studio since I moved here, Luke being the only other one. So you should feel proud about that.
Nice. No, it's a real privilege.
Yeah, and we're still figuring out the space. If Kramer does more of these with me in person, we'll probably figure out what it's going to look like and stuff a little more. But we're just rolling with the punches here today. So I think the first thing we're going to jump right into it. Baseball is back. By the time you listen to this, your favorite team is probably maybe 10 games into the season. What do you make of just the early start to the year for either the Yankees or anybody else? What's the biggest thing that jumps out to you 10 games into the year here?
Well, let's start off with the negative. It's not a good time to be a Miami Marlins fan at the moment.
It's true.
Because I believe they are 0-8 at the moment. They have yet to win a game this first week of the season.
We could have dunked on the Mets a little bit too, but then they had to go mess around and win a game. So
yeah, they almost... The way they won that game was wild because they were getting no hit, I think, into the 7th or 8th inning before they finally won that first game, and they were like 0-5 up to that point. So it took like a little bit of an epic comeback, in the 9th inning to come back for the Mets to finally win their first game.
And like for the Yankees, it didn't look like it was going to start off great, but you guys had like an amazing comeback in your first game against the cheating Astros.
Yeah,
and you guys with your 6-2, I think, as we're recording this. So like. Solid start so far for you guys, I'd say.
Yeah, no, it was honestly, it's a great start to the season for the Yankees. We swept a 4-game road series in Houston to start the year, which Houston is obviously our biggest rival at the moment. And playing in Houston has been a house of horrors for the Yankees. And to go in there and to win all 4 games, coming back after being down in every single game was pretty satisfying as a Yankees fan.
And obviously one of the big things with that is Juan Soto being a Yankee now. Like, this guy was all over everywhere. He won, a couple years ago, he won the home run derby. Then he gets traded to San Diego, and the things that typically happen to people that go to the Padres happen. The guy disappeared. Like, he still played well, but you didn't hear anything about him. And then he goes to New York, and he, made his presence known in that opening game, and I think he's done pretty good ever since.
Yeah, no, he's gotten off to a rare start because guys who bigger superstars who usually come to the Yankees don't always get off to as hot of a start as Soto does. Soto's came in here and it's like he's a seasoned veteran because most guys that come, now granted, it's only been a week, I'll say that.
Sure.
Most guys that come in feel the pressure immediately. They try to do too much, but Soto has had a positive impact from the moment he stepped on the field, and it's felt very natural for him to come in and just fill that role next to Judge of being the 2 big guys to carry the team.
It was refreshing in general. I don't even think it's a Yankee thing. I think oftentimes when a big superstar goes to another team, they almost always start slow. Like I think like Trey Turner last year didn't start great for the Phillies. So it's like for a guy to jump in that you expect big things from to start doing those big things right away was like, oh, okay. I know this guy's good.
Yeah, no, it was a nice surprise because not most, but it seems like recently some of the big free agent signing that the Yankees have they almost rarely get off to good starts. But the fact that Soto is playing as well as he is in this first week is definitely a positive sign of things to come, I hope.
So let's talk about some of the things that were headlines before even the first pitch of the season. And one of the biggest offseason topics was the new MLB uniforms are terrible. And I'm not just talking jerseys. This is last year's, by the way. I found in last year's model recently, so I'm safe here. But we're talking jerseys. We're talking the pants. The pants may be even worse than the jerseys. I don't think they've screwed up the hats because New Era still does the hats, and New Era makes a great product. But have you ever seen anything quite like what we went through with these? And they're still wearing them. Like they're like the Yankees have that new throwback look for theirs. But I think because it's already a gray jersey, you don't notice it as much on the Yankees per se. But like this is pretty unacceptable what we're watching out here.
For the Yankees and the road uniforms is not that noticeable. The Yankees road uniforms are pretty plain to begin with, so there's not much that could have changed. But I've seen some of these other see-through jerseys that these teams have, and they just look awful. And I don't know why baseball hasn't stepped in and done something about it, because they look pretty bad. It's to me, it's unacceptable for 2024 Major League Baseball to have such bad uniforms.
And I think even if let's give them the credit here, like even if they have stepped in, it's going to take forever to fix. Like there are teams that don't have like whatever color jersey in stock yet. Like you normally have your home and your road, and most teams have a third and a fourth, and now the City Connect is a thing, which we'll talk about later. Some of these teams don't even have their full wardrobe of jerseys in their clubhouses yet.
Wow.
So for it to even take that long, I think even if tomorrow they decided this is the biggest issue in the game and we need to fix it, it might still take half the season to correct.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate because they look so bad.
Yeah.
It's crazy how awful they look. It's a noticeable difference too.
The biggest thing for me that I notice, like when you're watching them on TV, you don't quite notice it as much because you have natural light to work off of and stuff. But how small the names are on the back of the jersey. Like as I'm watching it, it's like when you watch a movie that's not about baseball but has baseball in it. And it's like, oh, they're watching a Mets game, and it's like it's the jersey, but it's not quite the jersey. That's how these look to me.
Right. Yeah. No. It's like I said. To me, I blame Rob Manfred. I'm going to blame him for a lot of stuff because he is an awful commissioner for baseball, in my opinion.
And people blame Fanatics, and I know that they have a lot to do with it because they just they don't produce these jerseys, but they're the ones that divvy them out or whatever. They're the distributor, but they actually make NHL jerseys, and hockey fans hate those as well. And you get them delivered, and like the logo's upside down or Penguins is spelled wrong. So like they deserve some of this blame, but I think there's just like apparently the players, like they put out a questionnaire, like what would you want to see change in the uniforms? And it's a summer game, so a lot of the players are like, we would like lighter jerseys, which even buying this one from the last year, the jersey I had prior to this is like Jim Tomei, so it's old, right? This is considerably lighter than the one I had from 10, 12 years ago. So that's a plus. But I guess they went so light that it's, this paper mache that we're dealing with here.
Yeah, the fact that it's see-through, it could be problematic for certain guys who don't wear undershirts.
That too. And then the pants is a whole nother thing. Luckily, the hats at least look good.
Yeah.
While we're just talking uniforms here, the City Connect is a thing that's been going now for like 2 to 3 years. The Phillies' new one just came out. I don't love the jersey. I don't mind the hat. I also cheer for the Reds because I work for the Tortugas. I don't love theirs. When your team is the Reds and your jersey is not red, like that's kind of takes away from. People love to have black jerseys, so I understand that. What do you think of, because like the Yankees don't have a City Connect, right?
No.
So what do you think of the cons? Like there's some great ones, like the White Sox Southside jersey, maybe the best jersey in baseball, but for every good one of those, there's like 3 or 4 weird ones. Like Boston might have the worst one. But what do you think of these in general?
In general, I'm a boomer when it comes to uniforms.
Mm.
I like the original uniforms. Like I don't mind alternate uniforms, but I think these City Connect jerseys are horrible in my opinion because they look I guess I get that they're supposed to represent the city,
but shouldn't your regular jersey do that already?
Yeah, the part that throws me off is that some of these jerseys, they look nothing like anything like the team that they represent. For example, the Texas Rangers have one of the worst. I mean, a lot of teams I could probably say this about.
Yeah.
But the Texas Rangers specifically have one of the worst City Connect uniforms I've ever seen. When the Yankees played the Rangers last year in Texas and they were wearing their City Connect, they looked like they were wearing prison uniforms. it was that bad. And the other team, the Baltimore Orioles, are another team that just it looks like it was designed by a 3-year-old.
So I could probably come up with like 5 to 8 ones that I like, but that's still like maybe a third of the league. When 2/3 are terrible, like I said, that White Sox Southside, I will put up against any regular jersey in the league, and they didn't stray far from their normal stuff. Like it's still black with gray.
Right.
Like you could wear it with the normal stuff. Like if that was their regular everyday jersey, nobody would mind.
Right.
And then like there's a few like I can't think right now, but there was a few that were okay. Like the Reds one is fine, and a lot of people like it. So I'm a little different there, but I think most and like the Philly one just came out and it leaked like a couple weeks ago. People were like, "There's no way that's it," because that looks nothing like. It's literally the equivalent. Remember when the Eagles wore the blue and yellow?
Oh, right.
It's basically a baseball version of that. I do like the hat though. It's got the Liberty Bell. It's got 2 stars for the 2 Worlds. That hat I would wear. My friend Hank has purchased that hat already. The hat is fine, but they could have gone much simpler with the jersey, in my opinion.
In my opinion, these City Connects jerseys are just another way for baseball to try to make money. It's just another jersey for them to sell you so they can make more money. Me personally, I'm not a big fan. I'm okay with an alternate jersey here or there. I'm just overall, I prefer the regular home uniforms, road uniforms. Now, maybe I'm biased because I'm a Yankees fan. So like when you go to Yankee Stadium, you want to see the Yankees wear the pinstripes and nothing else.
Well, yeah, they're wearing one of 2 jerseys. Like when you walk into Yankee Stadium, a fan is usually wearing one of 2 jerseys. You're wearing the pinstripe or the road gray.
Yeah.
And I love road grays for just about every team. Like my other Phillies jerseys are road gray. Even the Tugas, I love that's my like if I'm buying a jersey, most of the time it would be the road one. The gray because you can just wear it with other things. In my opinion, but what is it? I think it's a lot of people like the San Diego one. It's very vibrant. People, I see that one out and about in Florida even. And then Miami has like a Miami Vice one, which that's always easy to even the Heat have like a Miami Vice jersey, and I think that's great too.
Let's not even get started on basketball and alternate jersey
uniforms. They take it way too far.
Yeah.
Do you think this is like here to because like the color rush for the NFL, right? That had like a 5-year lifespan, and now we've done what people always wanted, which is just throwbacks, which is what they should have been doing from the first place. Do you think this has like a long lifespan, or will they just convert it to something else in a few years?
I think at the moment it's a fad. I don't know if the City Connect jerseys will stick around long term, but I do think there will always be some version of an alternate uniform from now on going around. If whether they call it City Connect or whatever, but I think some teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks, for example, they have I feel like they have like 4 or 5 different alternate uniforms. And so I just think it's just more of a way for, I mean, granted, and some of them do look cool. Like I'm not going to totally rip on all of them.
Yeah.
Like some of them do look cool, but some of these designs get a little ridiculous. And to me,
like the Cubs, I believe they have one that says Wrigleyville, and I'm all for that one because it's still their dark blue.
Yeah.
It's not what you're used to seeing, but it's fine. And if you're only going to wear them 10 times a year, I get trying to mix it up a little bit, but like when I can just dismiss 2/3 of them, you got to come at them from a different angle, I think.
Right. Yeah. And my biggest thing is, at least with alternate uniforms, use them during the regular season. Do not use them in the playoffs. In the playoffs, it's not about what uniforms you're wearing. It's about the games. And so you want to be wearing your regular home uniforms or road uniforms because that you're representing your team in the playoffs. And so
I agree 98% of what you just said. Let me ask you this though.
Yeah.
So the Phillies last year did Throwback Thursday, and they wore the powder blues like the Mike Schmidt era. And they even did that in the playoffs. And then 2 seasons ago, they wore that in the World Series. And I didn't hate that because that is a jersey that's been worn since the 80s they've won a championship in. So I'm okay with that. If you have a throwback jersey in your rotation.
Yeah.
But yeah, the City Connect, I agree. I'll never forget. The Knicks stink, right? They're pretty good right now, but in our lifetime, the Knicks have stunk.
Yes.
And last year, the year before, they finally made the playoffs and they won a playoff game, not a round, but a playoff game.
Yes.
And they were wearing their whatever Connect jersey. I'm like, you win your first playoff game in a decade and a half, and it's not even in your iconic jersey. No, granted, that jersey wasn't terrible, but it still wasn't their main jersey.
No, it's insane because why teams, and especially in basketball, why they do that, I will never know. Because one of and I know you're not a fan of LeBron, but one of the best moments in NBA Finals history is when he's going for that block
And he's wearing the sleeves.
And he's wearing the sleeves.
Yeah, that whole season.
Wouldn't that have looked so much better of them just wearing their standard regular Cavalier? And instead, they're wearing
100%
sleeves.
And the Magic, for example, they had its okay. They may have had the best sleeve jersey out there because it was a gray one, but it's still like I want to see that. The worst thing that the Magic did for when they had those orange ones, have you seen those? They finally got rid of those. They're wearing like the Shaq era jerseys now.
Yeah.
But like, if I turned the Magic game on in those years and they were wearing the orange, I basically just turned it off. Like I couldn't even watch it.
Yeah, I don't even know what the orange ones look like. That sounds awful, though.
It's imagine the pinstripe, but everything that should be blue is orange.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's that bad.
It sounds like an attack on your eyes.
And like I get it, we're Florida, we have orange. Like I get the thought process, but like,
but orange is not in the Orlando Magic's
not
color.
even close. Like it's one thing if you wanted to go lighter blue, darker blue. If you want to do a gray, I feel like I need to be inserting all the pictures of the jerseys we're talking about. I may attempt to do that, but that's a lot of editing.
Yeah,
but we'll see how that works.
Right.
But that's a lot of jersey talk. Let's talk about. I don't know that I've gotten an updated opinion of you from this, but I know when the pitch clock thing came up initially, you didn't like it, if I remember correctly. Now that you've seen it for a whole year, this will be year 4 for me because we were using it in the minor leagues for about 2 years while they tested it. I personally, as somebody who works in baseball, I love it because it easily chops 20 minutes off of every game that's played. Now that you've seen it for a whole year, where do you stand on it?
The pitch clock,
yes,
by itself, I love it.
Okay,
the pitch clock is great. Like the thing with
you
baseball,
you originally didn't, right? You've come around.
Originally, like I wasn't sure what to think of it because I felt didn't know how much it was gonna speed things up or how rushed things would feel. But now that we had a whole season, I love it because it gets rid of so much unnecessary nonsense between pitchers and hitters, between of readjusting your gloves, your batting gloves, your hat, everything, your pants, your belt, your shoes in between pitches. And it's like, no, get in the box and swing. I think it's a huge success, the pitch clock. And I love that it's one of the best changes that baseball has made in a long time to improve the game. Now, as far as speeding things up, now included with the pitch clock is, and they have kept this since the COVID era, is the ghost runner on second base to start extra innings. That I am 100% against completely. Now, to be fair, I'll compromise and say you let the whole lineup bat once, and that's 3 innings, assuming everybody goes out 1, 2, 3 every inning. I'd be willing to say it's sometime in, I don't know, the 12th, 13th inning. If you want to throw the ghost runner on then so you don't have 20 inning games, I can understand that.
Okay.
But
so you're saying once the whole lineup bats wherever that may be,
yes.
put it in. Okay.
Yeah, so that would give you the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th inning of still real baseball, and to try to finish a game the real way rather than starting an inning off in extra innings with a ghost runner on second, because it completely changes how an inning can go.
Right.
When a pitcher right off the bat has a runner on second and has to pitch out of the stretch versus starting an inning, a clean inning off with nobody on, there's speeding up the game. And in the COVID year, I could understand it because it was the COVID year in 2020. Yeah. But now that it's 2024, COVID is done and gone for baseball sense. For baseball sense,
yeah.
It to me it's not necessary, and I hate it.
So that's another thing I've seen in practice now for several years. I enjoy it in the sense of like it helps speed up the game. The one thing it does do is like prior to it in a normal extra inning game, your strategy could be whatever you want it to be. There's a million ways to score a run in baseball, and you could be trying to do one of those. The one thing it does, and I don't even know if this is good or bad, it makes every team kind of have the same strategy. You're trying to, ground out to first, move your second guy to third, sacrifice fly, bring that guy in. Bloop and a blast. So that initial first inning of it, both teams are trying to do the same thing. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's something that I've noticed with it.
Yeah.
So I don't hate it personally with that. To me, like the football equivalent of that is like, all right, at OT, both teams get a drive and you're starting at like midfield. It's
Yeah.
kind of what it's doing. It's speeding up that
Hmm.
first little chunk. So like, I don't think it's awful. And like, I don't remember for this year. Is it not in the playoffs still? Or did they finally put it in the playoffs too?
No, in the playoffs, and it was like this last year. In the playoffs, it goes back to real extra inning
Hmm.
baseball. Even and in the playoffs, there's if the game went 21 innings, it would still go 21 natural innings.
Sure.
And that's my biggest problem with it is that during the regular season, immediately in the 10th inning, we have the ghost runner. But then as soon as we get to the playoffs, they change it, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
I would be much more okay with it if like they we did let 9 batters hit through the order and then put the ghost runner on. I'd
I
be
don't hate
much.
that. I don't. Yeah.
I think that it would be a compromise because you can still finish the game in 10, 11, 12 innings the real way, and then if it starts to drag on, it's like, okay, then I understand you can't have people here all night.
Sure.
So then put the ghost runner on. I feel like it's a compromise rather than it being one or the other. Let's just meet somewhere in the middle.
I think I'm okay with that. So okay, but if you were given the choice,
Mhm.
the ghost runner for the regular season, keep the playoffs the way they are,
Yeah.
and they say, Kramer, you can pick one of the two. You keep the ghost runner, or regular season games can end in a tie. What are you picking?
Uh, I don't like the thought of ties in baseball, so
It
I
makes
would.
my skin crawl when I see it in spring training, and there's no reason to do
Mhm.
extra innings in spring training anyway.
Right.
But when I pull up my phone and it's
Yeah.
Phillies and Reds end it for
It,
a P, and it's
it's,
like this is gross. It just
it,
feels weird.
yeah. No, I'm okay with ties in football, but ties in baseball does not work for me. I'd rather have the ghost runner rather than a tie.
I mean, a tie in football for that to happen, like a lot of guys, you have to not score for 25 minutes of
Right.
any point. So like if teams ended in a tie, they typically earned that tie.
Yeah.
So I think I'm okay with that.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I almost look at it with the extra inning in regular season with the ghost runner and not in playoffs. It's like with soccer, like a regular soccer game can end in a tie, but if it's in a tournament, in the playoffs, in the World Cup, when there has to be a winner, they do the penalty kicks, they do the yada yada. So
Yeah.
like you're kind of tells you the difference of what those types, like where you are in your season based on the kind of game you have to play.
Right. It's wild. Like to me, the Ghost Runner is somewhat similar to a shootout in hockey.
Yeah.
Basically,
Hmm.
it's like it's you're getting a finish to the game, but that's not real hockey. Like it is like the
Yeah.
guy still has to hit the ball, pitcher still has to pitch, and all that stuff. But it's just to me, it's a little watered down.
I mean, it's with the penalty kicks in soccer. Like there are teams that are like, if we just try to play flat out here,
Mhm.
we may not beat them, but if we can hold our ground and get to PKs, we have as good a
Right.
chance as anybody to win a PK battle. And I think that happens all the time in Champions League and the World Cup and whatever it might be. So
Mhm.
I think you're just like, in a sense, you're playing. You could be playing for extra innings because you like your chances better with that ghost runner.
Yeah.
You know.
And in baseball, there's 162 games on the regular season. There could be a lot of ties if they had ties.
There could be. I mean, you think how many times you watch your team, forget other teams.
Hmm.
They probably play 8 to 10 regular extra inning games a year, maybe more.
Yeah.
So if there's 8 ties on your
Hmm.
record, it does convolute
It would get
your
really,
record a little bit for
yeah,
sure.
that would get very complicated. I'm much more okay with, in that sense, I'll take the Ghost Runner,
Yeah,
but
that's where hockey confuses me because if you go to extras, because they play
yeah.
the point system, like if you win, you get two or whatever.
Hmm.
Going to overtime and losing still gets you like a point, and then the other team gets two. If hockey people, maybe I don't have that quite right, but like you get rewarded for getting to overtime even if you lose, which I don't know that I love that.
Yeah, the hockey thing has really confused me
Hmm.
because like
Because with soccer, it's easy. You win, you get three. You lose,
yeah.
you get none, and you tie. Each team gets one. Like I think you can explain that to a kindergartner; they'd understand it.
Yeah. Because like my brother Craig, he's been trying to get into hockey more, but we still don't quite understand how the point system works or
I
how.
think it's two and one, like overtime. You
Mhm.
get one, and if you win, you get two.
Yeah.
But I like that soccer is three because the difference between 3 and 1 makes you want to go for the win. Where
Hmm.
it's like, why risk? I got a point in my pocket. Why risk getting that second one and getting zero? But I'm pretty
Right.
sure it's two for a win, zero for a loss, one for an overtime loss. I think.
And I could be wrong on this, but don't you get like a point if you score a bunch of goals or something in a game?
So there's a goal differential. So like, let's say both our teams have the same record,
Mm-hmm.
but I've scored 20 goals and only given up 5. I'm at a plus 15 goal differential.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the same record and you scored 10 and given up 9. Your goal differential is only plus 1,
right?
where mine's plus 15. I'd be higher in the standings than you.
Hmm.
And the same thing in soccer too. Like they have that like goal differentials thing for a tiebreaker scenario.
Yeah.
So
it just, to me, it kind of gets complicated. Like I'd just rather would stick to wins and losses.
yeah, I agree. But again, they play so many games that they need a way to, that might be the most grueling sport out there. So they need a way to keep it moving, I think.
Right.
And I like with every OT, they like take a guy off the ice. So like I wish they kept going with that. And then at the end, if it's like 7 OTs, there's just 2 goalies smacking back and forth. I think that would be great. Or they could just meet at center ice and fight, and then the winner gets the win.
Yeah,
that would be electric for sure.
Right.
That's still the one sport I haven't been to live. We got to go to a solar bear. So I can't. That's not true. I did go to UCF and Emory Riddle. So I did go to a college game, but I would like to see solar bears or lightning or something. But
right,
yeah, one of these days I would like to see that.
Oh, definitely.
So before we talk about what might be the biggest piece of drama in baseball right now, let's talk about something that's easily a close second. And that's what the hell is going on with the A's. I think the newest news out there is after this year, the A's, and that's all they'll be called. There won't be a city name attached to them for 2 years. They're going to be playing in Sacramento at the campus of Sacramento State College, not college, university. And I've seen pictures. It looks like a beautiful ballpark because colleges have some really nice ballparks. I've watched more college baseball now than ever. A lot of cool things, but for a major league team to play somewhere like that is just an insult to the game. I think everything going on with the A's to me is an insult to the game.
It's really awful with what's happening with the A's, because the A's are one of the most historic teams in baseball history. They've been around since the 1800s. They're one of the original franchises, along with like the Phillies and the Reds and like that. They've been all over. They've been in Kansas City, Philadelphia, now in Oakland.
Should have never left Philly, man.
Yeah. The part that bugs me about this A's situation is that there's no reason for them to leave Oakland. They need a new stadium, but the fan base is there, and you might think, oh, but no one shows up to the games.
Why would you right now?
Yeah, why would you? They have a fan base. The team, the fans are there, but they keep doing these reverse protests.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, on opening day, there was a huge tailgate outside of the Oakland Coliseum for opening day,
and then nobody went to the game.
No one went to the game.
Yeah.
Last year, I think when the when the A's were playing the Tampa Bay Rays, they sold out the entire series as like a one series like protest of, hey, we still care, but the ownership sucks.
And then there was one. It might have been in one of those games where like the first inning they were like dead quiet.
Yeah.
Or the first half inning, and then when they came up to bat, they all like let their stuff be heard and everything.
Yeah, no, it's such a shame because the A's have had good teams over the years, but every single time they have a good player, they trade them. And originally, people were praising this because it was the Billy Beane era, and he was figuring out these new creative ways to make the team good and still make the playoffs. But in a sense, it's kind of come back to bit him in the end, because every time they have a good player, they don't sign anybody. They trade all of them. And every single time they're good, they trade their players away and then they become bad. And it's like they go back into rebuild mode, but they're not rebuilding for anything. They just stink. And that's why the fans have essentially, in one way, given up. But they're not giving up on the team. They're giving up on ownership.
I don't blame the city of Oakland to be booting them out after this year, because it's the equivalent of if you were in a relationship with someone and they broke up with you and said, but can I live with you for 2 years while my new person builds our dream house?
Yeah.
You'd be like, no, absolutely not. Get out of here, right?
Right.
So that's exactly how that would be. So I don't blame. My heart feels for Oakland because they have lost all 3 of their teams in a half decade.
Yep.
And I don't think we'll ever see anything like that. And you may find this ridiculous, but I truly believe it. The A's are more, as terrible as they are in the recent memory, they're more relevant than a lot of teams. I don't know if it's because they're meme worthy. I think it has a lot to do with Moneyball. Everybody has seen Moneyball.
Right.
And like people, I don't know, they're just relevant. They're not good, they're not bad, but they are relevant.
Yeah.
And they won't be when they move, because the city is, this hasn't been decided yet, but like they're trying to pull a Supersonics. We're like, all right, if you leave, you're leaving the colors, the championships, the name here.
Mm-hmm.
So they may have to change, the
And-
name, which they might still plan to do regardless. But for the next 2 years, they're just going to be the A's. They're not going to be the Oakland, the Vegas, whatever, Sacramento. They're not going to be anything.
Yeah.
And it's going to feel very Washington football team like.
It with the A's and like say the Las Vegas thing, that's not 100% guarantee that that's still going to happen.
It's crazy how every couple of weeks you're like, oh, this deal is done, and then another story trickles out that like it is, but it isn't. So yeah, it's.
So what I've learned from through my brother Craig, who lives in Vegas, and he's following this very closely because he's excited to get baseball in Vegas.
He'd have a reason to not be a Mets fan anymore, so I don't blame him for taking it if it happens. So
Yeah.
I would also follow it closely if I was him.
Yeah, no, because he's waiting for someone to go there so he can go watch the Mets play.
Sure,
and
or just baseball in general.
Yeah,
in his backyard again. Yeah,
but the problem is that the people in Vegas have rushed this whole stadium thing, and they've done it in such a bad way that the A's probably aren't going to go to Oakland, or not Oakland, I mean Vegas, because where they were going to place the stadium is in a neighborhood where a lot of people could get to it. It's easily accessible, but instead
take notes, Tampa Bay,
that fell
people
through.
Can get to. Sorry,
yes. And that fell through. So now they're tearing down one of the casinos on the Strip, and they're going to build the stadium right there on the Strip and put a casino behind it, of course.
Sure.
But the problem with it is
they're probably going to put like slots at your seat, like while you're watching, you can just be playing penny slots.
Oh, probably.
They'll probably do some shit like that. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's the problem is though is that one, the people of Vegas, I don't think they necessarily want someone else's used team. I think they're much more open to expansion team because they've taken off on the Golden Knights, but they're very fair weather on the Raiders.
I don't think that should matter. I don't think, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but if I'm baseball I'm telling them take this or leave it.
Right.
I think that'd be very short-sighted of them to be like, we want a team. No, not that one.
Right. But the problem though is that the fact that now that with the A's and them trying to get this stadium in Vegas, the people who are trying to get this stadium in Vegas, they're doing it so backwards that they're putting it in a spot on the Strip where there's no easy way to get to it for the locals.
Right.
And it's pretty much going to be like, unless you're a diehard fan and you're willing to go sit on traffic, on the Strip or sit
the way Tampa is currently.
Yeah. It's not many people are going to go, or they're going to have to solely rely on tourists or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't seem like it's going to fit very well for them. I don't know.
You mentioned like the city has embraced the Vegas Golden Knights and not as much the Raiders. Part of that is they went to the Stanley Cup their first year. They've now won a Stanley Cup either this past season or the season prior.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think because like what's that? The Arizona Coyotes, right? They're the team that has to play in like a college stadium right now.
Mm-hmm.
If that was the team that had to up and move to Vegas and rebrand, I don't think less people go because it's a used team.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think Vegas is just kinder to indoor sports than outdoor sports. I think that has a lot to do with it that people don't always factor in. But I don't know that the love they have or don't have for the Vegas Knights, it might help that, like, yes, this is a brand new expansion deal. They certainly wouldn't have been as good if they had to take an old roster or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So let's say for funsies that it ends up not being Vegas and they fumbled this, right?
Yeah.
Where would you say they'd go? And in general, what are the best expansion city options out there?
So this is actually very convenient. I do think that the fact that they're going to Sacramento and they're going to be playing that tiny stadium.
Yeah.
I think a decent compromise would for them to just build a stadium in Sacramento, because Sacramento has a big enough fan base for the current Oakland A's in Sacramento that they could still stay in California and stay in that general area. I'm not 100% sure how far Sacramento is from Oakland, but it's generally in the same region.
But it reminds me, like, my friend Nick's a diehard Charger fan. When the Chargers left San Diego, some people are heartbroken.
Yeah.
But for him, who he lives in Temecula, which I don't know California very well, but he's like, I'm driving the same hour in a different direction. So like, I hate that they left San Diego, but it's like it didn't affect him as a fan. And I
Right.
think the same thing might happen with the A's. Like you'll just get a different chunk of your fan base as the locals now.
Right.
So I agree. That might be the most painless move if they can pull that off.
Right.
And we see how they are with the Kings. Like they fought to keep that team when they needed to, and now they're pretty solid and people go and all that sort of thing. So I think Sacramento is definitely a move potentially.
I think it would be, and I'd be okay with it. The number one thing that needs to happen, no matter where the A's end up, is the owner needs to sell the team because he doesn't give a damn about the team.
Right.
He's just in it clearly for the money, and he has no desire to win or anything like that. So just put the A's somewhere, and then he needs to sell the team to someone who actually cares and can try to put a winning product on the field. Because even I'm not a fan of the A's, but I always like to see different teams throughout, the course of stuff do good.
Yeah.
Like every team is going to go through, highs and lows, but when teams just suck forever, that's no fun for anybody, and that's not good for the sport.
Yeah. So A's, removing the A's from the equation, what are other places that you think would actually be good expansion cities? Because whatever happens here, they're going to add one or two. They're either going to add a team to this, or they're going to add two. So, like, where would you like to actually see a team that doesn't have one currently?
So Vegas is a possibility if the A's don't end up there.
Sure.
Two other ones would be, actually no, I got three.
Mm-hmm.
An old favorite would be Montreal.
Yep.
If a team could go there, like say if the Rays move to Montreal,
which I think the last time I had you on years ago, that was one of our topics because they wanted to do that half a year, and that was never going to happen. But like that was the topic of discussion. Half the year there, half the year in Tampa. But yeah, Montreal, I think, is always they're like the Seattle in the NBA. Like whenever expansion comes up, they are going to be talked about.
Right. Yeah, and Montreal would take the and if the Rays left the Rays in Tampa Bay and moved to Montreal and became, took over the Expos in their history again, they would absolutely embrace it. Now they do need to build a new stadium because they can't go back to the old dump that they used to be in.
Right.
Because the Olympic Stadium is one of the worst domed baseball stadiums I've ever seen in my life.
If it's even still standing, maybe it is.
Yeah, it's still there and it's awful. But Montreal is one, and now two cities that never had baseball. One would be Nashville, and the second one would be Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City
comes up a lot for sure.
Has also expressed interest in a team, and I think if somehow done right or expansion, I think Nashville and Salt Lake City are the two main ones outside of Las Vegas and Montreal.
So I'll give you mine, but before I do, because this was also a topic last time I had you on years ago, on a scale of percentages, 0 to 100%, what percentage would you have of Pat Williams' push for Orlando to get a team would happen? Like 5%, 10%, 0%, 80%? What do you think the chances of Orlando getting a team actually are?
Unfortunately, I don't see it really happening.
Right.
I would say probably 25% maybe.
I think that's fair because when he's gone to the city about it, they don't dismiss him, but they say like, we're obviously not going to build unless we know a team's coming. But then baseball says, well, you're not going to get a team if you don't have a stadium. So they're not saying no, but they're definitely not saying yes as far as the city's concerned.
Right.
But so I have a weird one, which it's weird, but it's weird to come from me because this is not a place I ever talk highly about. But there's something to be said about Omaha, Nebraska, because when you look at the College World Series, that has been a thing that people travel to. They love baseball despite not having a team to call their own on any, like I'm sure Nebraska baseball brings people and everything. Mm-hmm. But the fact that is because, and maybe they wouldn't want to muck up their reputation. Like they're known as the College World Series place. Mm-hmm. But I do think that is a place that'll be on the short list at some point. Maybe if it's not Montreal, maybe they're just that burned with everything that went down. You could do like a Vancouver or another Canadian city, potentially, I think.
Potentially, yeah. I think it would the easiest one, obviously, and the most obvious one would be the Expos. Mm-hmm. I would say maybe just throwing it out there. I know nothing about it. Would be maybe Alberta because it's like or Edmonton, something.
I mean, basically
somewhere in like the middle that's far away from Toronto and Montreal.
Look at the spots that have hockey teams, those bigger cities.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Blue Jays do well.
Mhm.
And they do even, I think that they do even better once Expos went away because one, they're the only team in Canada, and two, like we don't want to lose our team as well. So
Right.
they're constantly reminded of where they are there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think hockey or not hockey, baseball in Canada, I think would be successful in almost any city they went to, except maybe Vancouver because the Mariners are so close. But in
That's
those
true.
other ones, I think might do well. I mean, all Canadian sports, like even the CFL, seems to do decent.
Yeah. So we were going to talk the Otani drama next, but one of the other reasons that me and Kramer are hanging out is it's WrestleMania weekend. So shout out to those who celebrate. And apparently it started sooner than we expected. So I think we are going to end this one here. But we'll probably have Kramer back on here pretty soon. Next episode, actually after WrestleMania. I don't talk wrestling a whole lot on the channel anymore. But me and Jake, Ryan, Cam are going to review WrestleMania 40 in the next week or so. So everybody look out for that. I want to thank Kramer for coming on again. And you're going to be seeing a lot more of him around the show lately. So thanks again for coming by, man.
Oh, yeah, no, it's been fun.
All right, so more of that in the future. So you can expect that. And enjoy WrestleMania. Enjoy some baseball this weekend. Thanks for watching as always. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.